Hello and welcome to the Men of God podcast, spirit-filled, God-led conversation by men and for men. I'm your host, Grant. With me today is...
David Gregg.
And today we're going to be talking on our second section here of The Skeletons in God's Closet by Joshua Ryan Butler. And we're starting with chapter 4. But before that, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas Eve. This is a very funny fact to us because due to the nature of us recording ahead of time, it's actually the week of Halloween. So yeah, it's we just finished taking our children trunk-or-treating today, enjoying all of those festivities. But you guys are enjoying what I consider the better festivities. I enjoy the Christmas season a lot more than Halloween. But I used to be a huge Christmas fan, or a huge Halloween fan. But then I converted to Christmas more recently, as a part of the sanctification, I suppose.
Yeah, we were never big Halloween people growing up, so
Yeah.
it works for me.
All right. Well, David, how's your week been? I haven't actually seen you. It's kind of weird because previously when I asked this, I knew how your week had been because I've been with you all week. But this week we've actually had our own lives for once.
It is a rarity that we don't see each other very often. Yeah, this week has gone by really fast. This has been really busy, dealing with baby, and lack of sleep. So it was a bit of a blur on our end.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, I've been working this kind of, I would say it's my new job, but it's also about to be my old job as I'm about to start my new job at the end of this coming week. So that's been a whole whirlwind of honestly kind of trying to find a different job to start at the end of this week, but that's all fine. I have a job that I'm going to be very thankful for. And yeah, I had this whole weird day, which I don't even know if I actually told you about, but I might have. But for our listeners, um, I am working at a hobby store for the holiday season, and so I came in to fit what I thought was just filling out like tax paperwork and like getting started kind of stuff. And I showed up. They told me to show up at 10 a.m. I showed up at 10 a.m. They had OSHA on premises doing an inspection and interviewing employees because some incident happened. So the person that was going to handle my onboarding stuff was very preoccupied with all of that. So he told me come back at 11. I came back at 11. OSHA was still there. He was still very busy. But then he kind of did this back and forth thing with me, trying to get me started, as he's also dealing with OSHA. And I ended up starting my like application, or not my application process, my like onboarding process. Um, but I didn't finish it because it got too close to my current job's start time, so I had to leave and do all of that. So that was a pretty whirlwind of a day there. I also went to Top Golf this week, which I forget even happened. We were like, we were hanging out with Anna's grandma, and she was just hanging out with us, asked to go shopping, so we went to like Target because we like to go to Target to kill time because I don't know, they've got fancy candies and stuff. I'm a big fan of Joyride, for those of you familiar. But yeah, went there. I actually did my therapy in the car because I do virtual therapy. So I did my therapy in the car while that was going on, and then we left there, and we were like, "Oh, we still have some time um, before our other plans." So we had like a half hour to kill, and Top Golf was right down the street, and it was half off because it was early enough in the morning. So we're like, "All right, let's go do Top Golf," and it was pretty fun. I enjoyed Top Golf. I think we had a good time for half an hour, but I definitely feel like a full hour would have been better. But yeah, it was still a great time. Yeah, this is like weird kind of week, and then we did trunk or treating today. We did 2 last night, which Anna, who is my wife for the listeners, was hosting a trunk last night, which I don't think she's ever done before. So she got to do that side of things while I was with our little one, taking him around to all the trunks to enjoy all those festivities and stuff. And so that was fun. And then we have a church right down the road from us that was doing a trunk or treat, and it ended at 7, and we pulled up at 6:57, and most of them were packing up, but they were all more than willing to, get rid of all of their candy before leaving, and give it to my son. So we've quite stacked up, and then we did 2 more today. So he has more candy than he'll ever eat, and we'll help him take care of that for sure.
Dad tax.
Yeah. How did your kids come out today?
Oh, they did pretty good. We went through a drive-through trunk or treat, which that's a different experience.
Yeah.
But they were also pretty generous with the candy. They gave us a bag, whatever, at the start. But I mean, we're halfway through. That thing was packed. I'm like dumping them into the floor of the car just because we need to make more room. And so that was really good. And then we went to a second place that advertised a trunk or treat, but it just had a bucket, like 1 bucket of candy at the entrance. Really, it was more of a community event, like a fall festival kind of thing. And it was good. They had like a cakewalk and bounce houses, and they were the free hot dogs and some games for the kids. It was good. It was a good little event. We were there for like an hour or 2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, with all that being said, it's time to talk about hell once again. So we're going to start with chapter 4, the boundary of mercy. So yeah, this chapter, it talked about a book by, I forget. It's one of those like classic Christian author. I don't feel like it was C.S. Lewis.
He mentioned a couple different authors in this.
Yeah, but anyway, he goes on to explain the landlord and the black hole, and this whole he explains it through this chapter of this other book that I can't remember right now, and I don't have the book next to me, so I can't reference it. But anyway, this whole idea that people struggle with, that like, how can God be good if he like created hell? But also, as we previously learned, hell isn't a place as much as it is a power or a force acting on us on earth. And God didn't create that. We chose that in the Garden of Eden. But this whole idea of God didn't create the black hole, as it were. Oh, the darkness. It says he didn't create the darkness, but he did create the black hole, as in he contained it.
The boundary.
Yeah, the boundary, which is where we get our title of Boundary of Mercy. So this whole idea that, God didn't just, put the sin in our life, but he did give it a limit, because as it says in the chapter, sin doesn't stop reproducing until it's taken the world down with it. So this idea that creating the ultimate bad limits the bad, because otherwise it will just keep replicating and reproducing and becoming worse and worse, which is something that I think we'll get into later in the book. This idea of once all the good in the world joins New Jerusalem, what happens to outside of New Jerusalem? Yeah. And it didn't quite touch on that part, but yeah. What were your thoughts on this chapter before I go any further?
Yeah, I have a few notes, but I think one of the first things early on in the chapter that struck home, he mentioned that divisiveness and a general lack of community was a problem in the church, and that is exactly what I personally have been seeing in our local church. And so I was like, okay, this guy gets it. I'm paying attention. And I like how he mentioned that evil is an adjective. He mentioned it as an oppressive authority, and that it needs a good thing to exist. So evil doesn't exist on its own. Evil is a corruption of good. And yeah, I thought that was an excellent point.
Yeah, and the way he kind of broke that down, I've thought about that a lot this week after reading that, of God didn't create adultery, he created love. There's these perversions of things God created as good, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's what hell is. It's a perversion of the good world that God created in Genesis. And I really like the comparison to sin and cancer. And it
Mm-hmm.
said in the chapter that cancer or the body doesn't need cancer to live, but cancer needs the body to live. So this idea that like sin can't exist without the good world to destroy. So without there being good to destroy, there's no what's the word I'm looking for? Like sin can't act unless there's good to act to destroy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one can't exist without the other, or I guess in this instance, good can exist without sin. Sin can't exist without good. Um,
Yeah, he mentions that if sin were ever fully realized, it would basically snuff itself out because there's no good left to corrupt.
yeah. So this brings us to like the second part of this chapter, which was the what he breaks down as the most merciful option. So what
Mm-hmm.
is the most merciful option for those that that don't choose the grace of God? And he breaks these down as he titles them "Marry me and bring your old lovers," "Marry me or I will kill you," "Marry me or I'll lock you in the basement," or "Marry me and go on your own way." Um, so these are, our relationship with God is described as a marriage. So he's using that imagery of marriage to kind of bring to light all these different perspectives that the church has come up with over the years of what's the most merciful option to deal with these sinners in the world. And so that first one, marry, bring your old lovers, is this idea that God's like, oh, you're a sinner, that's okay, come on in, and that being New Jerusalem, and this idea that obviously that wouldn't work because that's how this all started. um, you let a little bit of bad into a good world, and like we said, it eats it away and it destroys it. So we kind of knock that one off and say, well, that one certainly doesn't work. The next one is "Marry me or I will kill you," and says God kills everyone who doesn't love him. This means that Jesus died on the cross and defeated the grave, but only for some and not for all. It also shows that God wouldn't truly love you because he only loves you if you love him, which isn't very loving at all. That was kind of my summation of that. But this is the one that I think going into this, I thought that was going to be the answer. This idea that like, okay, we'll join New Jerusalem, and then all those other people will just die off. But based on this chapter and the way he phrased it, he mentioned Jesus died for everyone, not just for those who follow him, to have eternal life. So it kind of implies that even if you aren't living with Christ in eternity, that you'll be living somewhere eternally. At least that's what I got out of it. Is that what you got out of it?
Somewhat. I'm still waiting to hear. There's that section didn't fully go where I was hoping it would.
Yeah.
Um, so I got his argument and what he was trying to say overall, but yeah, he hasn't yet clarified what happens to people who don't choose to live with God eternally. And he's hinted that that might come much later in the book. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, man, just tell us that part. Um, yeah, so that's I'm. It felt a little inconclusive.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt. I read this, and I was reading this. I finished reading these chapters. I read chapters 4 and 5, and finished those at about 1:30 in the morning, and then decided to turn to Anna and be like, "Hey, let's talk about this." And she was like, "It's way too late to be discussing this," but yeah, there was like a little bit of a sticking point there of like, like I said, going into this chapter, I would have assumed it would have told us, okay, yeah, everybody outside of the new Earth, in the New Jerusalem, will just die off eventually in their own sin and won't live eternally. But yeah, it kind of seems a little open ended on that one. And maybe we'll hit that. I think it said, what was it, chapter 17 or something that we.
Yeah, according to the appendix in the back. I think that's
Yeah.
where it's going to be at.
So we got a little while before we get a conclusive answer on that one. But yeah, the other options were marry me and I'll lock you in the basement, which is God saying, everybody can go to hell and kind of wait in this like in the outside of New Jerusalem, in what was the word for that? The Valley of Hinnom. Yeah. Um, and they can wait there until they fix their attitude and then they can come back in. And this was pretty much implying that like, okay, if they didn't accept God before, what would make them do it now? Um, so yeah, it doesn't really work to lock your significant other in the basement, as this puts it. And then the last one is marry me or go your own way, which is God offering the option, hey, you can join me. We'll have a great time. We'll live in eternity in peace and harmony in the New Jerusalem. And you can listen to me and only me, or you can listen to yourself and choose to live outside, which is what he put was the most merciful option. And what his conclusion was is this idea that, yeah, you either choose eternity with him or you choose eternity without him. But there's no in between. So yeah, that's kind of how that chapter wrapped up. Any thoughts on that before I move to the next one?
I think the only other thought I had was like in the past I had heard how like hell in itself, that separation for eternally, was a mercy and not forcing a sinner to live in a holy world. That would be because that would be a type of hell to them.
Yeah.
Not when you live there, but the idea that it also reduces the harm that sin can cause the sinner, which you talked about, that was a new concept to me. I had not heard that said that way before, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. The landlord of the black hole.
Yep.
I don't know if I want to based on the excerpt, the fact that there was an excerpt of like less than just like a paragraph from this book that again I don't remember the name of, but you can, if you're reading along, then you'll remember the name of it anyway. But like the fact that there's a whole chapter breaking down what one paragraph of this book said, I'm like, I don't know if that's in my ballpark of reading right now. That sounds like a lot of work to break down the theology behind it. And he even said in it, he was like, don't worry if you don't understand this when you read it, because I'm going to break it down. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we have chapter 5, the Great Reversal, which is where he kind of brings to light the famous story, the famous parable, I should say, of Lazarus and the rich man. And do you have, what were your notes on this chapter?
Yeah, I thought he did a really good explanation of that rich man's torment. That he's, how he's now completely separated from God's goodness compared to his earthly life.
Yeah.
But again, this is where you mentioned postponing the discussion on that lake of fire.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh come on!
Yeah.
I just that's like the main key point that I want him to explain that I'm curious. I'm most curious about. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of torment was very important to this chapter because it wasn't torture, it was torment, meaning that it was self-inflicted and self-chosen. And I love the way he broke this down of saying that, okay, in New Jerusalem, we imagine this in New Jerusalem, okay, so I believe it says Abraham talks to him and he tries to tell Abraham, he's like, hey, bring me Lazarus. I need him to like, clean up for me, do my dirty work or whatever, because he was like his slave on earth. And this idea that he was too focused on what he needed and what he wanted, that he was not like, his attention was drawn to what he wanted. So he's looking over here, he's looking at Abraham, I imagine it like he's looking up at the wall, almost like the scene from Monty Python, where they're looking up at them, and Abraham tells him, like, he's asking like, oh well, I didn't get enough of a warning here on Earth to like truly make my decision and follow God or whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, and send my slave Lazarus to come help me, kind of thing. And it was all about him and like, what did he do wrong? What did he do wrong? Or what did he do right? Or why isn't he doing this? You know, and I just imagine that he's looking up here, thinking about him, and completely missing the wide open gate that God has for him right around the corner, to just enter that holy city. Because one of the things that the author makes sure to point out time and time again is that New Jerusalem, its gates are always open, but nobody comes in. And it's just this idea that you always continually choose yourself over God. And until you stop choosing yourself, you're completely going to miss that the gate's wide open. And so that's what I kind of really imagined was, yeah, it was self-inflicted. I also like that he mentioned, like, um, he was like, everybody assumes the fire in this passage is referring to, you know, this burning place of torture. And he's like, why do we assume that Jesus meant this literally when none of his parables were ever literal? You know, and so the fact that we take this one element so literally and couldn't get over it, when none of the other parables are literal in that sense. So yeah, I reread, this was one that I read through and I was like, let me read that again. I read through this chapter and I was like, I didn't quite fully grasp what he was getting at until that second read. But yeah, I really like the way he broke that down for sure. Let's see. You have any other thoughts on chapter 5?
Yeah, I do like near the. I think it was further near the end of that one where he has the breakdown of the rich man as like a portrayal of Judah, um, and how he talks about like he had some lingo there. Like they mentioned Gentiles being referred to as dogs or some other slang that they had back in then, which I have heard that explained by other teachers in the past. So I was like, okay, cool. I've heard this before, so things were kind of lining up in my head. And I also liked the way that he quoted C.S. Lewis putting it, that like the sinner himself is becoming over time. He actually becomes hell, like that self. Yeah. So
yeah,
that was
and the
stuff.
way Jesus chooses to call Lazarus by a name instead of, and it refers to him only as the rich man. It's like he refers to him by the sin of which he chose, by this greed, and it breaks that down as like, the rich man in his day would have been well known by everybody in town. Everybody would have known his name, especially if he was like a Pharisee or whatever it may be. Like everybody would have known his name, but they wouldn't have known Lazarus's name. And Jesus flips that, and he says, "This is the person that I want to talk to you about." Again, kind of flipping, you know, the first will be last and last will be first. That kind of the servant leadership that Jesus showed, and always talking about, you know, what you do for the least of these, you do for me. Always flipping that on its head because, I mean, things haven't changed terribly much in that regard since then, as far as how people look to the rich versus the poor in modern society. That really has not changed much at all. All right, so chapter 6, freedom from and for. And this chapter really breaks down how reasonable hell is. I feel like is what it kind of breaks down, is like how you can make these choices every day that would lead you to this self-inflicted torment. And so he breaks it down through democracy, the suburbs, and Facebook. So what were your thoughts on this chapter?
This one was really good, actually. I enjoyed this chapter of the three, I think, the most. I have a quote right at the top of my notes where he said that we choose hell every day. And just in the little things, I could definitely see that being true. But yeah, I really like the way he broke down this whole, the freedom that we're given here on this world. Like you said, it's not a freedom from something, like we're not being set free from a thing, but for, like, whatever, we're free. We're free for a purpose. We're free to do good. We're not. It's not that we're free from some punishment, but we're free to do God's will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this chapter had a lot of references from C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. And I keep hearing that book over and over again. I need to read it. I even put in my notes that this is a good reminder that I need to read The Great Divorce.
Hey, maybe that's our next book for the podcast.
Maybe so, because I haven't read it yet, so I guess I should.
Yeah, through this whole book and the way it has broken down hell to not be a place but a force, a force here on earth, and how God's goal isn't to eliminate earth, to wipe it from existence, it's to restore earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Jesus says, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven," it's really been a reminder to me that what we do on earth now is really important to God's kingdom. Because, yeah, we can sit here and say that we're going to New Jerusalem, but, we want to take as many people as we can with us. We don't want to leave them behind. And this whole idea that, like, all the evil of the world is this force of hell that we should be combating as Christians, has really led me to consider a lot more, doing a lot more with my time than just reading God's word, but also showing Christ to others, whether it be little things here and there, just talking to other people, showing that community, showing love, but like, I mean, even this week, I I live in Randolph County, North Carolina, and I know that there's a lot of homeless everywhere, but there's a lot of homeless in Randolph County, and this week I just really took the time to notice these people a lot more because, okay, I don't have a lot of money, and I know that they don't either, and there's not a whole lot I can do in my situation to help that. But even just like talking to them, treating them like humans, not recognizing them as the rich man, but maybe as a Lazarus, looking at them the way that Jesus would look at them. I was telling Anna this week. I was like, I went up to this homeless person, and I was scared of them, and I'm like, that just has to be the enemy working against me. Because every time you ever talk to a person that is sitting out on the street that doesn't have a lot left, they're so nice and genuine to talk to. Like, I've never had a person on the street that I've spoken to be mean to me or violent in any way, and so I've really tried to do more of that, of recognizing these people, and I would very much like to actually sign up somewhere, because like that was another part, is it talks a lot about the spark and the wildfire. We talked about that last episode, and it's like, okay, um, homelessness is a wildfire, and we can definitely manage that wildfire, and we should be. We also need to be managing the spark, but at the same time, I have no idea how to fix homelessness. I don't think anybody genuinely does. Like, we have lots of good ideas out there. I'm not gonna say anybody's idea for handling any that's bad, um, but I'm certainly not gonna come up with the answer for it. But what I can do is partner with people that have come up with an answer for that and use it to my advantage. Like, work with one of these local networks to help these people. Because as much, I'm a very much like do it yourself kind of guy. Like, I like to figure things out and go and do them. But like I said, I can't figure out homelessness. But if somebody else has a good idea, then I should be willing to help them with that instead of trying to do my own thing. Because then you got a whole bunch. If you have a whole bunch of people doing their own thing, then nobody's really doing anything, right? So, yeah, that's really it was a really big tangent, but it definitely leads into our chapter here. But yeah, he kind of breaks down, goes by the three things he said, which was democracy, suburbs, and Facebook. And the one that really stood out to me is Facebook. And he even says in the chapter, like, oh, I'm not saying social media is a bad thing, which it kind of is. I mean, it's it's not a great thing, but I'm glad that he doesn't just outright say, this is hell. Like shunning people for using Facebook. He says he uses it himself, and it's a helpful resource. But the point that he gets at is the second that we turn our gaze from looking at God and reflecting on how amazing God is and start looking at how amazing we are and thinking all about us is the second that we fall into hell. Is the second that we allow the enemy to have control in our lives, because nothing good comes out of here. Everything good comes out of there, which is definitely been something that I've thought about a lot this week. Is I don't know if it said it in this chapter or if it was saying this. Kona, who's my son, he got a new Bible this week, from the folks at Minnow. So shout out to Minnow. They're a really cool story Bible that we got him. I started reading to him, and it was in Genesis. Obviously the first sin, when sin had first entered the world. Adam and Eve didn't realize they were naked until they stopped looking up here and started looking at here, and they're like, "Oh, we're naked." So just that idea of keeping your gaze focused on God, and you won't notice what's going on down here, was a really strong and important image that I got out of this chapter.
Yeah, there was a lot to comment on there. So, um, near near the start of that, you mentioned community, and I found it interesting as I was reading this chapter. He started bringing up how hell is very isolating, and I found it interesting that was something that me and you had just talked about that very day that I was reading it, and so yeah, I personally, I work from home, and so I spend a lot of time with my family, but not much time with other men or other people in general, and so definitely have some social isolation that I experience, and so that resonated a good bit there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that is something that we're trying to be very intentional with. Not that we're participating or wanting or trying to participate in hell necessarily, but as we're trying to bring God's kingdom, well, how do we increase our community
Yeah.
in that? And social media definitely has, like, it's a tool like any other, of course, but the what I've seen, for those that don't know, I am a programmer. I work IT full time. Um, and so what I see when I experience social media is a lot of like, let's post our best moments. So this kind of becomes a digital mask over your identity. And so it's super easy just to present this best self. And that in itself becomes isolating, because now here I am seeing all these other wonderful lives and like, I can't afford to do those things, or, it didn't turn out that good when I tried that. And it becomes this self-defeating experience to participate.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it became a thing that I felt too unhealthy to remain in. And so I've actually moved to some more niche social medias that cater to my very specific hobbies, that no longer has that negative aspect to it,
Yeah.
at least not in my, not from what I've seen so far, at least. So
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to get
yeah,
at with social media in general. I mentioned in the last episode, yes, we have a social media for this page, probably not for too much longer, because I'm really trying to step away from social media as a whole. Unfortunately, I run a small business on social media, and so social media is like 100% of my business. So I'm trying to figure out how I can go about still running that business, but also stepping away from social media. And I have some ideas, but it's a difficult thing for sure. And also, like, I am a lover of Facebook Marketplace. I purchase a lot of random, and sometimes I'll just scroll through it and just see the weird stuff that people post. But yeah, one of those things that's definitely a tool, but it can become a problem, as I kind of made it into. And yeah, I really like when you're talking about community. Yeah, we had just talked about that. I remember reading this. I think I read it that night, potentially, maybe the next night, something like that. And I was like, hey, this is what we just talked about.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, that idea that like hell isn't this small confined dungeon. It's actually vast and ever sprawling, as he breaks down in the Great Divorce. Because the more isolated you are, the worse your life becomes. Because I mean, that's one of the things in Samson that we try to break down, is this isolation, because isolation is not a good thing for anybody. I mean, there are times, as we also spoke about, where isolation can be a good thing, but in small doses, not living your life isolated, which is another I mean, building community, that's what we're trying to do a lot right now. Um, and yeah, it's hard because, I mean, I have my neighbors right here. They live probably 50 feet from me, and I have another neighbor that lives 50 feet this way. And I've spoken to this guy a couple times. I've never spoken to those people. And they're right here. And we just do this. We've built these routines in our life where we go to work, as it breaks down in the book. You know, you go to work. I don't work in a cubicle, but like you can still, even if you're working in a room full of people, you can still not talk to them. You can still not socialize. It's very easy to do. I think most of us have this tendency deep down to not socialize, and I do that self isolation. So yeah, it's really important to. I've tried to make more of an effort of like, oh hey neighbor, you know how's it going, and not just going on my path doing whatever, making actual time to speak to other people, and it's something even in this temporary job that I'm working. I've tried really hard to do. I'm working with a lot of kids. I work. I might have mentioned this. I don't know, but right now I'm working at an after school program that helps at risk youth. And so we have kids kindergarten through fifth grade. And I know that not a lot of them have good male role models. And I'm the only male employee there. So I like to spend intentional time with these kids. And I really do hate that I have to leave. But, at the end of the day, I still have to do what's best for my family. And hopefully, a lot of these kids, I've worked here before, another temporary situation, and a lot of them remember me from that. And I'd love to believe that hopefully I'm a positive male role model in their lives that they get to hold on to, even if it was just for this month. But yeah, so we talked about Facebook and the suburbs. Democracy. That was an interesting one. I love how he says, as far as he's concerned, democracy is the best form of government we can get this side of our like the reunification between us and God. But what were your thoughts on the way he broke that down?
No, I thought he did a good job. Because I mean, like the way the New Christian Church lived was very much a voluntary socialism. They were all things in common, but no one was forced. But that just doesn't work in a broken world, right? If you want a larger community to follow that kind of rule, you really need a very strong underpinning of some theology like Christianity to make work. And so I like how he didn't try to shoehorn that as something we should do right now or as like a governmental thing, but he did a good job,
Yeah.
I thought, on just talking how democracy worked and some of the pros and cons and such.
Yeah, that again kind of pulls into what I said about Facebook, which is democracy is you having a say in everything, and in the perfect world, we don't have a say in anything, because at the end of the day, we're sinful humans, and the only person that should have a say is God. And so this idea of letting that go, giving away our vote, and accepting that God is almighty and all powerful and truly just and gracious, and accepting His authority over our lives instead of trying to give ourselves some of that authority. And yeah, that brings us to the interlude, which I didn't think there was too much to talk about. Maybe you had some notes on it, but I think it was mostly him going back to the previous previous what 6 chapters? Yeah, 6 chapters, and kind of like saying, "Hey, I'm not just making all of this up. This is where other people have said this in the past." Which was appreciated. But did you have any thoughts or notes on the interlude?
Yeah, just a couple. I was glad to see him bring up Gnosticism. It's one that's obviously often glossed over. So the how we're looking forward to this renewed Earth, like we're not going to be living in some heaven spiritual realm forever. We're going to be living here on Earth, just renewed as it was meant to be. So the idea of living back in Eden sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he mentioned another author from way back, Augustine, on the nature of evil. He quoted from that one, and that looked real interesting don't know if I can handle the old
Yeah,
English for
yeah,
that. But but another one that I had to jot down as one to look into later. But I did have one more note that I thought was quite accurate is the notion that those who do live in hell prefer it.
yeah,
Um, in that it's not a place like where our freedoms are taken away, but rather it's where our freedoms are given.
yeah.
It's we were given to our choice,
Hmm.
how we decided to live, and so it's the ultimate fulfillment of that. And so yeah, I thought that was a quite accurate statement.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that kind of ties all the way into all of what we've covered. Is anytime that we have the choice and not God, we make the wrong choice. I mean, Adam and Eve had the choice not to eat that fruit, and what did they do? They ate that fruit. It's just like when left to our own vices, we just make the wrong decisions every time. But luckily, we have that hand of grace, God inviting us to be forgiven. I mean, I love the way that it also put that. I believe it was in. It doesn't matter which. I think it's chapter 5, but this idea that it's not about, um, you know, being getting saved. We've already been saved. We just have to accept that. We have to accept our salvation through Jesus and stop trying to do it ourselves. I thought that was a really good way to put it. Yeah, any other final thoughts before we wrap up our Halloween on Christmas episode?
Yeah, I think the last note I had was one last reminder that I really want the explanation on Lake of Fire.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely these 6 chapters have really just like teased us, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, now you gotta wait for these chapters. Which, you know,
That's
to be
fine.
fair, we were just talking about this on Tuesday, but like hoping that the book doesn't take a nosedive, because like I think both you and I have been really excited about the concepts that it is talked about here with hell and how it's broken it down, and a little less interested in the next few topics. But I think he intentionally sprinkled it throughout there, so I'm interested to see how those get interwound together, and how he puts those. So I'm definitely
Yeah,
still looking
same.
forward to the rest of the book, but this was the most exciting topic, as it were. And maybe I'll be wrong. I mean, maybe by the end of this, I'll be like, hey, actually, I enjoyed this topic better. But we will see, won't we?
Yeah, he started strong.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, we'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it for us today. We had this lovely plan to record yesterday morning, and things happened, life happened. And here we are at 10:20 p.m., which we usually record in the morning for those that don't know. So if we had a better energy tonight
Mm.
after, I don't know if you partook any candy, but I certainly took a couple pieces.
Yes, 100%.
So maybe we got that sugar rush tonight. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Looking forward to speaking on the next 3 chapters plus that interlude. So keep following along. Make sure you're reading so that you're up to date when our next episode comes out. So we will see you guys then. With all that being said, David, take us out in some prayer.
Yes, sir. I got it. Let's pray. Father God, thank you again for another great conversation. This the opportunity to read this book together, to learn from this author. Just some fascinating concepts that quite a few are new to me, honestly, and it's been great just to deepen my knowledge in this area and apply some wisdom to my life in the process. So thank you for it. Amen.
Amen.